Gotta unmute myself. Hey, everyone. How are we doing? Welcome to another fun and exciting live edition of the Musing Panda stream, where we're going to talk all about Warmachine and Hordes. And this week, I'm super excited because we're going to talk about why it's a great time to get back in the game. And I'm going to challenge you guys to share this video with people that are considering getting back in, because we're going to talk about all the reasons why you should be here, because it's awesome. So let me introduce some of our guests. We'll go around the horn here. First, as always, we have the one and only Alex Cosma, but actually not the one and only. Just kidding. But,
Right. I think I told you that story.
You did. So someday we'll tell it on the stream. But yeah, Alex has been with us every week. You guys know him pretty well. He's played for a very long time, probably one of the longest tenured players in Warmachine. He's got a lot of good perspectives, and we'll get into that. We also have Ryan Chirboga. Did I say that right, Ryan? Is that how you say your name?
Yeah, Chirboga.
Awesome. Chirboga, who is an old head, and we used to go round and round back in the day. And I think he smashed me pretty good in the one game we played that I can remember, which was, I think it was Peace Scar, maybe, versus Krios.
Gorshade 2.
Was it Gorshade 2?
I think. I'm not. You know what? It could have been Scar. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, Ryan was around for a long time, and most people know him as a competitive player, but I bet what most people don't know is he's also a community builder, a fairly good painter, and just loves the hobby as much as you all do. So that's pretty awesome. And then I guess last but not least is Jordan, who I don't know well, but I'm excited to have, because I put a call out on Facebook because Aaron Whaley just decided he was too cool for school, didn't want to hang out with us. Right. And then, so Jordan is going to play the role of everyman and just ask questions, because he just recently came back to the game, like very recently. And so he'll have a little better perspective, because I think Ryan and I have both been back for 4-ish months, 3-ish months, something like that. Maybe a little longer from Ryan's case. And Jordan, I think you're just recently back. Is that right?
Yeah. So I kind of started in May, but then I really started like a month ago, whenever the old Umbry box got here. So I'm as simple as they come.
Yeah, man. That crack is something else, isn't it? Okay, so what I wanted to start with is I thought we would just go around the horn, talk about what got you into Warmachine, where you started, how long you played, that kind of stuff, so people get a sense for like how old of an old head you are. I guess we'll start with Ryan.
Sure. Hey, everyone. Thanks, John, for having me on. I really appreciate it. Oh, gosh, where did Warmachine start? So I played 40K, a long time ago, GW back in the day, 2010-ish, 2011-ish. Wasn't very good at writing rules. Stumbled across Warmachine, absolutely incredible game, fell in love instantly. So did I play Warmachine probably from 2011 to 2017, maybe 2018? When kind of the wheels fell off. But yeah, as kind of John said, competitive player, traveled around a lot, played Crix before, stepped away from the game. And then what really brought me back was SFG buying into it again. And I thought, okay, this will breathe new life, and, let's give this a shot, and absolutely love it. It's been almost, I'm coming up on a year, I think. I think I bought everything in around maybe September, October of last year. So about a year.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Yeah. Did you want to show off your Phantasm quick? Because he's a
sure.
You guys got to check this guy out. He's so dope.
So yeah, there's my Phantasm.
So
the bright lines, like they kind of look bluish on camera. They're not that bright in person. It's just the lights. But
cool.
He was a blast to paint. Absolutely loved it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Jordan, let's go to you next.
Sure. So I've been playing Warmachine since like the middle of Mark II. I played very casually at that time. Once Mark III rolled around, I got a little more competitive, and I stuck with Mark III all the way up until the pandemic. Once the Archons started coming out, I saw the writing on the wall, so I hopped out. I play a lot of other games too, so it was easy for me. And then right before they launched Mark IV, I was like, out. Mark IV comes out, get a little bit into it. Like my gaming group, I'm not participating. I'm like, you know what? I'll try it. I play a game, not my thing. Steamforge buys it, and all the guys in my gaming group are like, well, give it a shot, give it a shot. So I'm like, okay, I'll try it. I'll give it a fair shake. I was actually traveling in Chicago for work, and they have a meta out there, the Windy City Wargamers. I went to one of their steamrollers. Shout out to James. He loaned me a Dusk army. This was back in May, so I got to participate in the steamroller. Had an absolute blast, and I was like, you know what? I'm back in. I'm in. I heard that Old Umbry was, because it was right in the middle of like Gravediggers coming out. So Old Umbry was next in the pipeline, and I really liked the look of the model. So I was like, you know what? I'll jump in on them. So I did. Mm-hmm. A lot of the guys in my group started coming back. Rich Owens came back into it and was telling me about it. I'm like, well, you know what? I got like an inch and a half of height on that dude. So if he's playing, I got to come back in and tower over him. So that was the crux of why I got in.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Mm-hmm. How about you, Alex? Did you ever leave?
Gosh, I had a period when I was in college where I was playing very little, mostly just like casual games over the summer. But no, I started in very late 2003, between the release of Prime and Escalation. I was doing 40K for ages and ages, and my gaming group in Virginia started picking up this new game called Warmachine, and I started having like my 40K and my Warmachine in my bag, and then eventually, as the community kept going, it was just the Warmachine bag. And more or less since then been on the game. So this makes this my 22nd year of playing the game more or less continuously.
Crazy.
I was bad at the game for I want to say like 16 of those years, but it may be all 25.
I was gonna say it's not necessarily the first 16 either. Just saying.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just playing. All right. I guess people probably don't know this, but I started around the same time. Escalation had just released. So Alex has got me by just a little bit. And can anybody guess what faction I started with? I don't know if I ever shared this on the Musecast.
Were you a Crix guy?
I was. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Guess my caster?
Well, welcome home, John.
Yeah, right. No, I P Scar was my girl with the curl, man. I played her a ton. Mm-hmm. I absolutely went after people. I thought it'd also be fun just to talk about some Warmachine accomplishments if you guys want really quick, and then we'll get into why you should come back to the game because it's really good right now.
Well, we see one of Ryan's Warmachine accomplishments framed in the background back there.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
I guess I could start if you wanted. Yeah, won the WTC in 2014. So I think we're the only U.S. team to have ever won. So that was Pagani, Brian White, Jake Van Meter, and a sort of a phantom of a fifth player that we won't go into. It's old history. I also packed my. This is Haley 2. It was a poster from back in the day, and it's signed by Matt Wilson. It's a numbered print. I've had that on my wall. I didn't just put that there for this or anything, but I figured it would be a good background for this. So accomplishments, other than the WTC, I won Lock and Load one year. That was 128 players. I won a handful of different kind of convention level events. I lost. I lost. So here's the real. Okay, so I won 11 convention level events, and I only ever lost in the finals once.
That's good.
I lost to Mike Puryear because I forgot to feat in an Iron Gauntlet final. So every time I made it to with P Scar, who back in the day just gave everything +5/+5, right? And I went for an assassination on his caster, didn't have the 5 strength I thought I had, and it went downhill from there.
Puryear was shifty like that.
Well, he didn't do anything. I'm the one that forgot to feed.
I know. I'm just saying. He probably mind tricked you. He was probably talking about like half naked girls or something, and then you're just like, "What are you talking about?" And then suddenly you forget to feed.
It was a very careful spot where I was trying to get 2 Helldivers in on him, and they were, it was a question of could I get them in melee range. And I called over a judge, which they were officiating the whole thing anyway. Pagani actually was the judge. So Pagani kind of measures it, determines that I can get the 2 of them in there. And I was so focused on placing and other stuff that I didn't say I was going to feat. I didn't mark damage on Scar. And I started rolling dice doing things. And I was like, well, damage is X. And Will's like, no, Ryan, it's not that. You didn't feat. And Mike didn't even say it. It was Pagani just being an active judge. So that was, I don't know why I'm highlighting my 1 loss in the finals. Let's talk about something else.
It's humility. Okay, John.
No, it's perfect. So no, I absolutely loved traveling around. Loved the community of going to conventions and hanging out with everybody. John mentioned me being a community guy. I went to conventions and I won a lot of tournaments. My brain works well with this game, but that's not why I went. It's not why I did it. It was the friends that I made along the way. It was getting to hang out with everybody. Even going to the WTC, right? It was being able to go abroad with those guys.
Right.
I was kind of the team mom even for that back in my day. I would help arrange travel for everybody, and I booked all the hotels for us and our train tickets and all that stuff.
That's because you're an adult. Most of those guys weren't. So.
You're right. Yes. Also an adult.
I know, because I was I was the mom for everybody at Muse. I promise you.
Yeah.
I booked everything. I got us organized, got commitments, plane tickets, everything. So yeah.
We need us. Like we're essential to making this community stuff happen. And
yep.
So anyway, no, I absolutely loved my time before. Very, very excited to be back. Still love the game, always played some other games in between and never found anything that would like really, hit the spark for me. So yeah, just super excited to be back. And I don't expect any accolades this time around. Definitely still trying to put competitive lists together, but not as serious as I used to be.
That's good. I mean, not bad, I guess I should say, because it's just, you run out of time. I get it. All right.
I'm older now.
We are older. Yeah. I'm half a century old somehow. All right, let's get Jordan in here. Jordan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your accomplishments and what you've done?
Well, much like Ryan, the real prize was the friends I made along the way. So
100. Yeah.
I've got a lot of top 5 finishes, a couple podiums. There's kind of always a bridesmaid, never a bride, never won one. So I have gone to a couple Captain Cons, a lot of other conventions, a lot of local steamrollers. I was the drunkest at Bocor Brawl one year, which if you've ever been to Bocor Brawl, that's
an achievement.
That is an achievement,
yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
So ask around about that story, you'll hear that one.
Also, everyone, give these guys a break. I didn't tell them I was going to make them brag about themselves. So really, it's just a ploy so that I can brag about myself a little bit. Yeah, but go ahead.
I had my notes, and none of them included bragging about myself. So
yeah, I know.
I'm a little thrown off. But it's kind of how I connected with a lot of the guys in the Mark Howard Dojo, which is the meta we have down here in South Jersey. And at this point, I've been playing so long. Some of these guys I've known, God, almost 20 years now that I think about it. So, and that, like I said, most of the fun is just going around playing with them. Even when we were out of Warmachine, we were still going to conventions together and doing the kind of stuff we would normally do, just in other game systems. So
I think that's one of the
bigger than any. Maybe I'm just bad, but that's always been better, more important to me than winning.
I think most people would agree with that. One of the things I think is really amazing about that South Jersey meta is how like there's a whole documentary about you guys. It's insane. We actually talked about it on the show. Yeah.
So self-produced, but there is a documentary.
No, it was cool. Yeah, no, it was
Yeah,
awesome.
it
But
was-
it's like
it was-
a real
it was a really
big
good
boy
one.
documentary. It's like not a
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know, it's real.
Rich did a fantastic, absolutely fantastic job making that. I, he does all the filming, the editing. Now I don't know how he was able to reach the camera controls up that high when he's like down like this, but he killed it.
That's dope. How about you, Alex? Let's do you, and then we'll do me real quick so I can brag, and then we'll get into the episode.
Sure. Yeah, Warmachine accomplishments. It's really remarkable because the ones that got away have a way of sticking with you more than the ones that you managed to nail. So, I've won some convention level events. Been to the WTC 5 times. I think the highest placement was on Billy Nichols' team. With a bunch of first-time guys. That was a fantastic year. We managed to sink, I think it was 4th place. Otherwise, playing this game for 22 years, it really is the friendships that stick with you and wind up being the biggest reward. Like particularly, a lot of the West Coast crew. They're guys that I've known for the better part of a decade or more, and just creating some like real lifelong friendships, super worthwhile. And finding this community and having it be like, when I moved out to California, going to Warmachine night was where my friend circle came from. Now that I'm in Arizona, that's where my friendship circle comes from, So it's a real treasure for me. The metagames have gotten to be a part of, and just the I guess Aristotle would call it friendships of virtue coming out of competing really ambitiously.
Oh my God. What a big brain quote. I love that.
I went to school for philosophy. I get real poncy if you let me.
Nice. All right. There was a place I was going. I just want, and I'm glad you guys all sort of, I figured this would happen. You all hit the highlight that I wanted to hit for this, which is you go to your first event. I say this all the time, to compete. Every event you go to afterwards is for what? It's to hang out with the people in the community.
Mm-hmm.
I accomplished a lot competitively early in my career. I would say there was a 3-year span where there was, I think over 3 years where every convention I went to, and I went to every convention, I top 8'd. So some I finished higher, some I finished lower, but I it was a pretty steady, pretty good chance I was going to make top 8. But the 2 most vivid memories I have are one, when I won the Warmachine Weekend Sportsmanship Award, the Explosive Award. If you guys know what Explosive refers to, you get bonus points because it's pretty dang cool. That award meant everything to me because I enjoyed being in the community and being recognized as somebody people who like to play against was just far and away. Like, winning is fun, but having that kind of recognition was amazing. And then the second time was the time I cried, which was when I was at Adepticon and Privateer Press. All the employees had painted a 50-point list for me, a Fiora list, because I don't know if you guys do this, but I had a house that burnt down and I lost all my miniatures. And so I didn't really have an army anymore. Right. So that was one of the coolest things that a company has ever done for me. And it was just amazing. Like they took their, it wasn't so much that they gave the models, because the models doesn't cost them much. But the fact that they took time to paint them really meant a lot. So anyway, long story short, the community is awesome. Privateer Press was an awesome company at one time, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that SFG buying the company is what actually got me back in primarily. So, all right, Alex, go ahead.
Just a brief digression. Like I know you were moved by that moment, but I think the Warmachine community at large, particularly, you've had a really big and moving impact on through Muson Minis, and just like having a really big public profile championing this game and making it accessible to people, making the tenor of sportsmanship and friendship and the way this community works, not just something that lives in, isolated pockets here and there in the Midwest or the Northeast or wherever, but really making it like a nationwide going phenomenon that if you come into this game, this is the sort of community that you're going to expect. This is the sort of, like quality of sportsmanship you're going to expect. And there's really, really this big platform to express technical excellence in the pursuit of mastery. For me, I was always a local player. And like, for me, the end game lived and died at the local steamroller. And Muson Minis and your work in particular was instrumental for me becoming aware of this broader game, that one could travel for it, that there was this national circuit, that there was this whole world available out of it. So you see like a company and your friends at that company give back to you, it's coming around what you put out into the world. So, I don't want to step over that if we're talking about accomplishments.
Well, thank you. I'm getting a little emotional because I do love the community and I love the game. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this is I want the game to grow. And one of the things I wanted to say from the outset is this is an exciting time to get back in. It reminds me so much of early Mark II, so much of early Mark II. Like you guys have, like I have goosebumps just thinking about it. That was such a great time to come into the game because there were so many new players coming in all the time. It kind of took some of the learning curve and cut a little bit out of the meat of it because you were experiencing your learning with other people that were experiencing their learning. You didn't like show up at a tournament and 11 people have been playing for 6 years and it's you. And you're just like, oh, I guess I died on 2. Oh, I died on 2 again. Hey, guess what? I died on 2. Pretty cool. This game sucks. I'm out. It wasn't like that. So it's such a fantastic way to get in. But Alex, why don't you go ahead and let's get into our questions. We had a lot of listener submitted questions, which are great.
Yeah, most of this comes from our Discord channel on the Tried and True Discord. So excellent hub for online leagues, for general great game discussion. And if you love this podcast and you want to get involved in the episodes, whether it's faction suggestions for overviews or questions for our guests, this is a fantastic place to do it. So most of these are pulling from that group. And I guess we'll get into the first one. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the game feels like early Mark II, and sort of riffing on Justin's experiences. Coming in. I'm sorry, Jordan.
Yeah, you're good.
J names just fry my brain. But riffing on Jordan's experiences, getting into it like 22, 23. There was a period where it felt much more like early Mark I, but we'll get into that later. What had you coming back to Warmachine after these years? What were the changes or what really caught your eye this time around?
Let's start with Ryan.
Yeah, so I did mention before that Steamforge buying it is what brought me back. So when I left the game, it was theme lists, and then you mentioned the game before feeling like Mark I. What were the revision docs that they would publish every 6 months or something like that?
Oh yeah, the community integrated development CID. They had that.
That's it. Yeah.
And from the outside looking in, I looked at that stuff and I just thought, oh my God, this is like nowhere near anything I want to be doing. Coming back to Mark IV though, like you hear that it's a pretty polished game, and then you talk to somebody and I kind of kick the tires a little bit and come in and look at it and so John, I like your parallel to early Mark II. You kind of dip your toe in and you're like, oh my God, this feels like Warmachine again. And you're right. It feels like kind of like when I started, a lot of the bloat of the game has been removed and the barrier to entries, because late Mark III, even a lot of Mark II, it was hard to jump into the game because there were so many models. And now there's not so many models. I mean, you got all the legacy factions, and that can add some bloat, but for the most part, you can just dodge. And so the game, you can put your arms around it, right, as a new player, and you don't get gotcha'd as much. And it's such a powerful point of time in the game. Like you said, it felt like Mark II. It does feel like Mark II, which is just tremendous. I absolutely love it.
That's awesome. So that's what brought you back, is both the sale kind of caught your attention, and then,
I would say the feel is what kept me then, right? Like because I dipped my toe in or tried a game or read some rules doesn't mean it was going to catch me again, because I still stayed on the periphery, kind of watching the game a little bit while I was away, because I loved it so much. I didn't own an army. I wasn't going to tournaments. I wasn't reading rules. I wasn't reading the CID updates, but I kind of watched from afar and went, no, that's not something I'm interested in. And then to come back like this, hey, this is something I'm interested. This is really great. And then to go back to the community stuff, I got all my locals back in, and we had a Friday night meetup. It's been about a month now. I think we had 21 people show up.
Oof.
On a Friday, just to get together.
Wow.
No, forgive me. I think it was 19, but still, right there. Like, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, right.
Over 20, oof. Under 20,
Yeah. But it was absolutely incredible. And so we've had local steamrollers that we'll have 12 people at or something like that. And that's not too hard to do. So to bring the community back with the rule set feeling tight, but then also the game being at that early Mark II stage where it feels very something else I should touch on is there's a lot of space to explore, right? Like you can look at the game and say, I play Dusk, right? John plays Dusk. John and I are going to play Dusk completely differently. I know it because we've shared lists together. Not completely differently, but you get it.
But very differently.
There's room for you to come in and make your mark on the faction and say, I want to do this and I want to do that. And because that's what Warmachine Mark II was part of for me. Even, John playing Crix, right? Like Scar 1, yes, I played a lot of her, but Gorshade 2 was one of the casters that I played the most. And I won a ton of events with Gorshade 2. Nobody else played Gorshade 2. But I got to leave a mark on the game and explore something that, because the game wasn't solved or anything like that. Anyway.
The game wasn't solvable. I think that's what's great about Warmachine.
Also very true, yes.
Let's get Jordan in here. Let's get your perspective if we can.
So I think one of the things that brought me back is there's a trend in the industry right now to simplify your games and get not like an easier barrier to entry, but you just make it overall less complicated, less crunchy. And I've kind of, I play a lot of games, so it's nice on one hand because it's simpler, it goes quicker, but you're always kind of looking for that real deep game with a lot of nuance to it. So when I came back to Warmachine, it, with where it is now, it's got that crunch again. So that's kind of what drew me in. I think when I left, I was kind of, every game I played after I left was compared to Warmachine. Like, oh, well, this has, like, MCP's got that real important placement like Warmachine did. And, Kill Team's got that peace trading element like Warmachine did. And you're kind of always comparing back. So now coming back and you're getting that crunch, you're getting that depth of rule. And it's like, I'm home, like this is where I'm supposed to be. And that's kind of what kept me in it. And most of my gaming group going back to it is what was like, all right, I'll try it out. But that crunch is what kept me.
Question for you. Do you think that crunch makes you feel like you have a lot of agency in the game, which is what you're actually talking about?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, you have a lot of decisions to make. And, I can play the same game against the same opponent, same scenario on the same map. I can play that 3 times, and each game is going to end up with a different outcome and be played differently going into it.
Right.
Right. Yeah. The same, but after that, all bets are off.
Yeah. How many games do you have like with somebody at a tournament or even a game night? Like, wow, this game went this way, but like if we were to roll this back and re-rack, the experience we would get would be completely different because we're fine-tuning and attenuating around what happened. Like it's an indicator of like serious depth of play.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the beautiful things. I'm going to slide in here and just kind of share my perspective because I was never coming back to this game. And a lot of that is personal. And I've kind of mentioned that on the cast before. But I put so much energy and time into the game. When I stepped away, it was like, well, number one, I probably needed to step away just for personal reasons. And number two, I was a little bit bitter about it. Didn't really realize I was bitter about it. And then my friend Anthony Birdsong started talking about, dude, you got to check out Warmachine. I'm like, dude, I know everything there is to know about Warmachine. I don't need to check out Warmachine. I'm good. He's like, no, I really think you should check it out. I'm like, no, I really think I shouldn't. He's like, no, I don't think you know what you're missing. And I'm like, no, I'm well aware of what I'm missing. Don't worry about it. I'm good. And then he's like, they're three. Cool story, bro. No, I'm not playing. And then he's like, I guess they just got bought by somebody. And I'm like, who bought Warmachine? And I found out that the SFG guys bought Warmachine. And I'll give you guys a little bit of a history lesson. One of the things that used to frustrate me about Warmachine was Privateer Press could never focus themselves enough to take care of Warmachine first. And a good example of that would be, hey guys, your game is literally bigger than GW at all events. And the number 2 and number 4 selling games. So Warmachine and Hordes were separate games, right? The number 2 selling one miniature game was Warmachine, and the number 4 selling miniature game across the whole world was Hordes. So they're making money. I'm like, how about we develop plastic injected miniatures? And you're like, or whatever, or invest back in the business. No, let's go make a movie. I'm like, oh my goodness, why are we making a movie? Oh yeah, because it's what Matt Wilson wanted to do. And so I just got like, I don't know, I just got kind of upset with them because I'm just like, you guys have a golden goose. The game is amazing. The community is amazing. You don't have to do anything but just like invest in the game. You'll be fine. And I was super excited for all kinds of things, and I love the game so much, but I just kind of got tired of the same old. Like, I just felt like, you guys aren't even committed to making the game as good as it can be.
Right.
Yeah,
well, that's one of the hard things about Privateer Press. And, for people who are newer, just a history lesson, like Mark 1 went gangbusters when this game burst on the scene. Like, it's worth remembering at the time that actually Warmachine, it originated as like a massively simplified BattleTech hack. In fact, I have like an old trade magazine somewhere where they were doing like previews of the game, pre their Gen Con release. And like Krios and the Jacks were on Hexy bases. But the core dynamic of what they did going in and simplifying BattleTech and making it significantly more cinematic, more tactical, and reducing the stratification between units and mechs was really a winning formula, and it was a market that was right for it at the time. The company did insanely well in the early 2000s and grew ridiculously fast. And they entered Mark II, the second edition of their game, even going through the playtest, surprisingly cash rich. And then through a series of financial misadventures and bad investment, essentially, like squandered a massive lead and, also lost a lot of driving talent. And I think Jordan, your experience probably echoes this. Mark III was sort of released prematurely. And speculation is it was a money issue. They needed to move fast and they needed cash injection for it to stay going. And Mark IV was, premature. That the game did not release cooked all the way. And production scaling, wasn't up to spec. The models had egregious manufacturer errors from their Gen Con preview boxes to even their initial release waves just being incredibly brittle. and it was, it was kind of heartbreaking to watch this company just like make bad decision after bad decision that was sort of desperation driven, rather than what was best for the game. And, over the 6 years of Mark III, the community did go through like a lot of shrinkage. Pre-COVID, event sizes were still quite good. Maybe not golden era Mark II size. But I essentially traveled as soon as people were holding in-person events again. And it was rare to find a big one. Almost every qualifier I went to in that period was like 4 rounds at most. And one, having a capital injection in that, Steamforge Games is obviously much better situated financially. And 2, almost all those guys are old Warmachine players. Like, one of the things I used to look forward to at WTC was just sitting and having a beer with Adam Court, who's one of the founders there. These guys care a lot about making the right decisions for the game.
Yeah, let me build on that. Go ahead, jump in, Ryan.
No.
Oh, Jordan. Sorry, I screwed that up.
No, that's all right. I didn't want to step on anyone's toes. I was just going to
you're
say
good.
I had a little roller coaster of emotion when that happened too, because I remember Mark IV coming out, and you saw these stories about the resin not being cured properly, and everything being all jacked up, and you're like, oh man, this is not good. And then I kind of stopped paying attention after that, and until I saw the news that Steamforge bought it, and my one buddy was like, yeah, like it's going to be better now. Steamforge bought it. I'm like, Steamforge? Aren't they the guys that killed Guild Ball because it was too competitive? Like, this probably isn't going to be much better. But I'll be the first to admit I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you a little bit about why Steamforge is going to be successful, because I know those guys pretty well. Muse on Minis was a licensed producer of goods for Rich and Matt, who are the 2 primary owners of Steamforge Games. Number one, they're very smart guys, right? They're very savvy business guys. I don't know if you guys know this, but they actually had cash infusion, not only from their massive Kickstarters, which you've all seen, probably Dark Souls, etc. I think Dark Souls set all kinds of records on Kickstarter, but they also did a fundraising. So they actually did real like big boy fundraising. So they are well capitalized, and they have been, if you've been paying attention to the things they've done, they've made all their contacts in China. They've figured out how to do HIPS plastic or injection molding. Hence why you see things as the game grows, you'll notice certain models, like models that get sold to every faction, Nestella and Aberration come to mind. They're HIPS plastic. Those 2-player battle boxes, which they're sending to game stores to be kind of I would say like an intro box. So those are the things that get sold the most. Again, HIPS plastic. Why? Because it is the most economical. So as long as you have the volume to support it, you make more money. And it's just a better product to work with. Like, they're just better models. If anybody's spent any time with GW models, they're fantastic. As a matter of fact, if I was GW, I would literally make models for everybody else's games. I would just be a manufacturing company, right? And then you just own the whole market forever, because nobody would ever be able to compete with them. And that's just the truth. So they're well capitalized. They absolutely love Warmachine. They absolutely love Warmachine. I mean, you talk to Jamie Perkins, he's their lead developer, right? Guy's been playing Warmachine and putting boot to butt for as long as the Warmachine has been around for the most part. Rich and Matt were both pretty competitive players. Matt is an avid painter. But yeah, the game is going to take off. And then they have not only the financial muscle, but they have the wherewithal to deliver it at a high level. So I think you've already seen some massive growing pains because there's so much demand where we have a lot of problems getting models. Those things are being fixed rapidly, and they will be fixed. So as the game grows and gets more momentum, the better they will be able to execute, because they have, like I said, the financial muscle and the love for the game to really take it to new heights where it's never been. So I'm super pumped about that. And that was the main reason why I was like, okay, I will check it out, because I did not want to like fall in love again and then have my hopes dashed, have my head bashed against a wall where it's just like, wait, what do you mean you're making another movie? I don't care about a movie, or I don't care. I mean, I know that GW makes all their money off their IPs, but I don't care about your silly video game, which I think Flattooth mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. If you guys remember that video game, it was bad, and I wanted it to be good so bad. You have no idea. All
Yeah.
right. So that's why I ended up back, because, I guess the other thing I would say, like Ryan, the thing that keeps me in this game is its bright future and the fact that I can build lists. I can literally build an endless amount of lists for one caster. And I have a bunch of casters to choose from. And then if you want to build a new army, it's so cheap. You can build a really good Warmachine army for like $500 with a lot of options. And you can have like all the options for like $1,000, which I know is a lot of money, but in this hobby, that is not a lot of money to have like an entire army to play with and endlessly iterate on, especially if you've done anything like any sort of GW game, minimum price of entry is $2,000. That's
I mean, if you're
no
playing cheap and
army.
if you're playing cheap and cheerful, you get one list for around $1,000. And actually, I think one advantage of how they've been, structuring model purchases with the different boxes is it's actually a lot more clear what your buy-in points are, and it's like $500, tournament pair, bunch of options, $1,000, literally anything you want. Yeah,
pretty much the whole thing. So.
John, you mentioned Jamie Perkins. This is one coming back to the game. Jamie's somebody that I've, over the years, right, I've still gone to Adepticons and stuff like that. Maybe I was playing 40K. Maybe I was doing something else. Maybe it was MCP. And I'd go find Jamie at some point and say hi and ask him how they're doing and just check in, right? This is, 4 or 5 years ago or whatever. And so keep in touch with him. But to see him come back and be the head developer designer, super excited to have this in Jamie's hands. Absolutely incredible person. He's somebody we've known now for, I probably met him in 2014, I guess 2013 maybe, and so to have known him for that long, the game is in very good hands. I didn't know the other owners like you do, John, but if I can go on a small tangent right now, I don't know how much SFG inherited some of the rules for like Old Umbry or Gravediggers, and how much they put their own markings on this, because I'm assuming, the game traded, a year ago that SFG bought it. They had to have been in negotiations for a little while. What I would like to say, though, that is the tangent is, I think Old Embry and Gravediggers are incredibly well designed. I think both of those factions have massive depth. They are brilliant. I'm so excited, to come back. Okay, so I walked in and I bought Dusk, and Dusk already pretty much existed, right? I've got a Phantasm over here that's brand new, and I'm getting a 2-player battle box sort of thing now. But otherwise, it was old stuff, and that's fine. It was all new to me, so I was happy to see these 2 new factions be as deep as they are. I'm so excited for what comes next. So excited.
Oh man, and I'll just give a quick aside on that. Jamie, when I was deciding if I wanted to come back in, I just reached out to Jamie because he's like somebody I know, and I know he's a lead developer, right? And I'm like, well, I don't know, there's no protectorate, right? And he's like, well, we have a bunch of new factions coming out, a bunch of new armies coming out, excuse me, and new factions in the roadmap. So like it could happen, which was, I think, a tacit way of him saying, there's a lot of armies in the pipe that are coming, which is exciting. I think one of the innovations that they really did was, now you have so many list building options within your army, which is great, but it's confined enough where there's not this like massive overburden where you just end up with 70% of your line not usable, or that you don't really want to play with. You know what I mean? Which is where Mark II and Mark III kind of got, right? You had like a roster of 20 casters, 4 to 6 of which were probably where you wanted to be for the most part, right? Well, now you have like 4 to 6 casters and a lot of options, or actually probably 5 or 6 for the most part. Right. And the faction balance is good. I would say It's not perfect, but it never will be. It's like kind of an impossible dream. But the faction balance does remind me a lot of Mark II, because in Mark II, there was a lot of stuff that was good. There was a lot of stuff that was broken, but there was so much broken stuff you didn't notice. You're just like, oh, cool. It's all broken, so it's all good, which is great. And which is why, just as an aside, I kind of laugh at people that complain about overpowered stuff. And I'm just like, dude, you didn't have to play Keith Christensen playing Haley 2 or Keith Christensen playing Gatsby 2, or any of the myriad other amazing players who are playing the most broken stuff in the history of forever, So yeah, anyway.
Well, it's always interesting too when you're in one of those experiences and you're worried about, like, oh, Gravediggers, oh, Old Umbre, they're so hard to go against, and you still have a close game. Like, you're not necessarily inhabiting your opponent's headspace of what you're doing to make them sweat. There's always some grass is greener on the other side. I want to take this opportunity to actually ask. We're going to go a little out of order with these questions, but what, like, getting back into the game, what was the most jarring coming into Warmachine Mark IV now? And, what advice would you give to old heads wanting to make the return?
Let's let Jordan start with that one.
Yeah, go for it.
Ooh. All right, so I got two jarring changes that I think kind of throw me off still. I'm not the brightest man. I iron my brain every morning, keep it nice and smooth. But the biggest one for me is probably the way scoring works now, where you have to be ahead by 2 or ahead by more than 2 on your
3 or more
opponent's turn. That, for some reason, I understand how I score each element, but I just cannot wrap my head around having to be up by 3 or more on my opponent's turn, and how to place to keep that lead going, which we can touch on. But the next one is jamming. Back in the older editions where every model moved individually, I found it much easier to kind of run up and body block. You can make a conga line, so they're not getting charge lanes. You can tie them up with one guy and then kind of spread out from there, and you're covering a whole portion of the board that they have to clear to get through. And now, you can kind of pick one model in the unit, move them up, place everybody within 2. So I can't I get a lot of trouble wrapping my head around how to jam people up with units in this new edition. A lot of the other stuff, though, I feel like kind of transitions pretty easily.
How about you, Ryan? What have you found to be the most jarring?
The one of the things that I looked at first when I first came back was I was looking at point values and realizing that the game had moved up to 100 points, and most of my tenor in the game was at 50 points, right? I'm going to use one number that I remember from back in the day, Death Jack. I'm pretty sure was 18 points in Mark II. That's 18 points out of 50. Now heavies are, like character heavies are around that same price point. But we play out of 100. And so I was like, okay, so warjacks are literally like half the price. The game must be all warjacks now. Warjacks must be absolutely insane. And I'm looking at units and they're smaller, and I'm looking at the point levels, and I'm just trying to use my Mark II brain to assess Mark IV and thinking it has to be all warjacks. But then you play units and you see how they move and how powerful moving one guy is and then the rest of the unit teleporting. And you realize that the game is balanced, that warjacks aren't half as cheap. I mean, they kind of are, but like they don't take over the game, right, in any way, shape, or form. So that's kind of 2 in 1, right? One was, it was the initial looking at points. The second one was when you actually play the game, not just talking about it or reading a rule book or listening to a podcast, you put models on the table and you watch the way units move. And it still breaks my brain sometimes when I place a first guy somewhere in somebody's front lines, and then the rest of the unit teleports back behind something else, and it's just like, oh, I didn't really consider that you could reach this solo all the way in the back because you leapfrogged. Same thing for range units. When somebody moves range units, I'll go back to Gravediggers, right? Because they've got their is it commandos that have hand cannons, range 12, POW 12, CRA, all that jazz.
The Rangers, yeah, when they've got their
Rangers.
heavy machine gunners. Oh yeah, calculating range threat ranges on units is like mind twisting.
Because then I'm like, okay, you're speed 6, and then you can place 2 inches, and then you have a 1-inch base. So that's actually like that front guy is speed 9, and then he's range 12. So that's a 21-inch threat. Okay. And then you can obviously line up guys next to him. So you could get a really heavy CRA at 21-inch threat off of a speed 6 range 12 gun. And it's just like, oh God, okay.
Yeah,
so that's what
really quick, Ryan. Some quick shorthand for new players. Just add 4 inches to all your threat ranges. Just do that, and you'll be in the ballpark, and you don't have to like break your brain. Just add 4 inches. You're good.
Yeah, you're right. Perfect. I mean that is a pretty safe way to do it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the tactical flexibility too is like not to be understated. The Warjacks are super, super powerful, but the units are way faster than you expect. And, you know, it's not just a function of the speed. Their placement is very flexible and very dynamic. And that the roles they do on the battlefield are like, you know, a lot of it is accomplished on the back of their movement abilities, which is impressive. And just to echo Jordan's point, you know, what jamming used to look like in the past was you would put up a wall in front of your opponent, you know, essentially that this is move blocking you. And now much more what a jam looks like is I'm presenting an entanglement. Like our armies are going like this, you know, yeah, the one guy like kind of reaches the front line, but then the rest of his friends are in your mid to back line, like they're engaging Warjacks, they're engaging, you know, this entire unit. And as engagements or fights go on, like the interpenetration where like my unit advances and all my dudes are now fighting all of your dudes, where in the past you'd get much more like lines smacking into each other. It feels real different. I mean, it feels like similar fundamental dynamics, but you're now accomplishing something that used to be hard, like as a matter of course.
There's also less infantry. The unit sizes are 3 or 5. So that's kind of interesting. But the most jarring thing for me, I think, is around unit movement, right? Threat ranges, but also the game is, I don't know how to explain this. It may have to come back to me, but like there's no free strikes. There's no facing. It's simplified, but it's still very tactically deep. But like the fact that there's no free strikes has gotten my caster killed several times where I'm just like, oh yeah, you're engaged, but literally you can just, you know,
right. Yeah. A lot of old reflexes, just like, oh, this doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. So protecting your caster is kind of a different game, which I'm finally figuring out, although fire is still my bane. But yeah, the to the positive though, it feels like playing Warmachine, even with these like weird unit dynamics that we're talking about. And the balance is there. So like the units versus the jacks, like you're like, I only got 3 guys in my, you know, my 8 wound model unit. Doesn't seem like a lot compared to a Warjack, you know what I mean? But they perform on the battlefield just fine. You know, that like everything plays for a purpose. And I think a really, really cool highlight is this is the first edition I can remember where they actually met the sort of dream of Warmachine, which is big stompy robots punching dinosaurs, where like there's a lot of war beasts and there's a lot of Warjacks on the table. And it's awesome. You know what I mean? It is awesome to finally, back in the day, you could run some Warjacks, but you never had enough resources to really run them well. And now you can run as many Warjacks as you want in any list, and it's great. And you can run infantry in any list, and it's great. And because of the way the scenarios are, it's to your benefit to run a balance of both. And so what's great about the game right now is balanced is kind of broken, in my humble opinion. So
All right. So just on the tail end of this question, we all know guys who, like player turn is something that naturally occurs in the game, but it's very easy for Warmachine to turn into a profound love. Just because of the depth and what's available out of it. So we all know old heads who are on like the verge of coming back, or like John, like, no, I don't need to see it. And like, if for the people who you can sense, like, nah, they definitely like they miss this game. What would they want to know on making the return as old heads who've been through the return? Ryan, why don't we kick off with you on this one? Because you got a whole meta of old heads back in.
Yeah, my whole group from back in the day. So Jordan kind of mentioned this earlier, was like a lot of production issues during Mark III, start of Mark IV, and I heard all those horror stories from the sidelines. So part of me even coming back into Mark IV was I bought my army secondhand. And I asked, I was like, well, what are the prints like? Are there any errors? Is everything okay? And I was very concerned about the quality of the miniatures. So one of the things, I realize this is probably not going to be everybody, like anywhere close to everybody's answer, but I love the quality of the miniatures. I like the 3D prints. I think the 3D models are great. I think a lot of the especially like the newer stuff, I think the models are beautiful. They look great. I've had a blast painting all my dusk. I hate the studio scheme, but I think the models
everybody
are great.
hates the studio scheme.
I know.
Oh yeah, studio scheme for Orgoth, for Dusk, they're just god awful.
I looked at Chimera at first because I was like, oh, these guys look kind of neat, and I was kind of considering them to play, and I didn't like the models. But I didn't like the models. Sorry, I've also got a cat that's aggressive. I didn't like the models on the website, but then I saw them in person for the first time, and I was like, Chimera models look awesome. These are great. And that was not even painted, and then you see them painted and everything is great. And so I guess one of the fears that I would alleviate from a returning player is model quality is good. Your bag will weigh 20 pounds less than what it used to. Because to John's point, you don't have you don't have Mulg in all metal that weighs 6 pounds all by himself. You can murder somebody with. And so yeah, model quality is great. I've absolutely loved painting, and I've loved like seeing all the new stuff. They're great in person.
Can I build on that really quick? Our buddy in St. Louis brings out a really cool point, which is with the 3D printing augmentation of the new armies. So they give you these like free files to print extreme versions of some of their models, right? And Extreme Plugger is amazing, and they do like usually do a Warcaster, a Warjack, like a character jack, and they give you like a new sculpt, and it's totally for free, and it just adds so much flavor. And then they also add like a lot of bits and bobs. Like I know the Gravediggers had all these like cool arms and stuff that you could print that had like these fur things.
Oh yeah,
on them.
the ghost dogs.
Yeah, and it was just awesome. And I'm just like, oh man, this is so cool, because now they're like, not only are, to Ryan's point, he's absolutely right, the models are beautiful. If you just go to Steamforge's site, just browse through the model catalog, you'd be like, oh, this is pretty cool. I like this. But the way that they're smartly incorporating 3D printing is just freaking cool, man. Like it is, you see that Extreme Plugger and you're like, oh my gosh, I want that. And it makes you, well, I mean, it's also clever marketing. And it's like, yeah, okay, maybe I should go play Gravediggers. And then pretty soon you're going to have like 4 armies, but 4 armies cost you $2,000 instead of like, 8, like it would in 40K. So you're still winning.
All right. Yeah. Kick over to Jordan. For old heads, what's different? What's jarring? And how would you prep them for the state of the game as it is now?
I would say just just get out and play a game or two. Try it on for size, walk around a little bit, see how it feels. I think there's always a big difference in any game of reading the rule book or listening to people talk about it and then actually getting it on the table and playing it. And I think this is one of those games where you can read the rules and depending on your level of reading comprehension, you may understand it pretty well or not. But once you actually see it on the table, that's where it really shines. Like it's small. The game is smaller than it was at the end of Mark III. And I know, a lot of people had that complaint that it just got too big. And
the game did go through size bloat over about like a 9 or 10 year period. Yeah.
I mean, towards the end there, it's like playing a GW game, like 40K or something. But it's smaller now. It's easier to get through a game. You don't have the same clock issues because, you're moving less models, you're doing less stuff. Just get out, play a game or two, and see how it is. A lot of the differences, you look at it on paper and you're like, oh, I don't know. And I'm guilty of that too, right? Like I looked at a lot of the differences and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like that. That doesn't sound great. But once you actually try it, it's really not all that different. I think unit movement is kind of, you have to see it to really understand it. And then even after you see it, you still kind of don't get it until you've done it a couple times. But
like 10 to 12.
But it opens up a lot of doors too. Like I know like half the games I play now when my turn starts and I look down, one of the first things I do is, okay, can I get to his caster? And with unit movement being the way it is now, it's a lot easier to kind of set that up. So, or a lot easier to set up getting to an objective. So you have a lot more options with it. And I think it just gives you a lot more agency in the game.
Yeah. And it's also reducing like, one of the things I discovered very quickly going straight from, Mark III to Mark IV, it still feels like Warmachine. I mean, it does take reps to get used to unit movement and other aspects of the game. And I mean, honestly, I think the game getting smaller was welcome, toward late Mark III, like about half of all competitive games were decided on clock. But it feels like, it still feels like Warmachine, and restoring agency is a really big deal. I also feel that the scenario play is very intelligent in how they've implemented it, because it's essentially zones that you can't stand in the direct center of. And the relative scale of the zones, versus unit movement, like it's a lot of geometry to hold in your head, but it all works. And the reduction in elements, like essentially you just have one primary mover, it's actually reducing a lot of the tedium or a lot of the room for like really crippling error in like, oh God, my last turn, why is this guy standing out like this kind of thing?
Yeah, one thing I want to add too is the game, to me right now having played enough reps, feels just right size wise. So you might look at 100 points and be like, Jacks are like half their price. It feels like maybe the game is bloated, but because they've reduced unit sizes, and even, like we've said, the balance is right. The units are still good. They're still worth their points. They still perform their battlefield role just fine, and they're very well balanced with Jacks. Where, we used to call Warmachine infantry machine, because it's just the facts, man. You were just
Mark 1, Mark 2. Oh yeah,
for sure. So they never hit on that promise, but because of the way the unit sizes are, and because of the smart rule changes that they've made, it has streamlined the game. Like no spray templates, no blast deviations. There's a lot of things, no free strikes, things that, no facings, things that make the game sort of nitpicky and take longer have been taken out of the game, so that when you're playing the game, you're doing more strategy and tactics than you are like trying to figure out if this blast template. No, I think it only moved. I think you moved it 4 1/4 inches. You're just not like arguing over stupid stuff and wasting time. And so it feels like when you're playing Warmachine, you're doing more playing Warmachine and less like, doing geometry, I guess is how I would describe it. So,
well, there's an interesting lost chapter of history in there that the game Warcaster dropped somewhere in this lost epoch of Warmachine.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Warcaster was
I don't
a
know if we can
really
bring that up.
interesting but failed experiment. Essentially, the game launched needing a second edition right out of the gate because they had like serious balance issues and they had like competitive format issues because a game of Warcaster is 50% longer than a game of Warmachine, which is like inexcusable for a competition environment. But a lot of these innovations got previewed and it turns out they work great. Sorry,
Now,
you guys were gonna chime in on that. Go ahead, please.
I will say I do like the new size of the game a lot. My one gripe with it is give me back my 1 point solos. I hate making a list, getting to 99, and then being like, well, I guess I'm just a point down.
No,
Give me-
dude, you
give
just
me
got to
a-
get a
a
better
swamp
weapon on
dog.
your jack. Just upgrade your jack like the rest of us.
No, I like
Which
the
is-
weapons they have. I want a swamp gobber chef, or one of the ones with the little smoke cloud. Like, give me one of those guys, and just he can stand somewhere. I don't even have to use him. Just let him be there, so I'm not at 99 points.
So you feel better?
Yeah, it'll make me. He's a comfort blanket, really. He doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
He just makes me feel better.
Hey, man, he
Oh,
can
man.
test. He can score a flag.
You can give him a rule that says he can't. I don't care. I just want him there.
Oh, I
Maybe-
do want to. Go ahead.
Maybe this is like a new player segment because we've had in our outlines the dice segment, which has become a meme that I deliberately deleted because I think this just needs to be a standalone video. The highlighting okay, I've built a list that's 99 points. Sometimes you can squeeze in a jack arm or a head or something that's a little bit better for you. Like, I got the money to spring for it. Let's go. Often you can't. If I was to release like a new player like development section in that vein, it would be the human brain loves symmetry. It loves roundness in things. And you'll go to a lot of great lengths to like prevent psychological dissatisfaction from things not being symmetrical or round. But the countervailing point is trains together strong. When people try and deploy their armies, they'll put their, their trains or whatever powerful models on opposite wings. They'll deploy their army symmetrically. Like, you got to get used to asymmetry. You got to get used to building a 99 point list sometimes. Like, sometimes that's just the way to go. Stephen Williams clearly taking the brine blood position. Just pay 1 point for a rock.
I would
I
do
love
that.
it.
I don't want that 99. Give me the full 100.
You should play Brine Bloods. Brine Bloods actually has a surprising number of 1 point options, to be honest.
They're
Do they
rocks,
really?
but more importantly, Brine Bloods versus a lot of other factions can triage between 1, 2, 3, and 4 point options, versus factions like Dusk, you're kind of locked in at 2, 3, 4, and
Or 4.
it's mostly just your 4s that are good. Or like Old Umbre also struggles with it. So I got this 2 point guys, and I got the really expensive guys, and there's no in between really.
Oh, I'm gonna plant a bug in Jamie's ear. He should come out with several 1 point command cards. That would do it. So
Well,
they
that's what
always
they
have.
had. That's what they had
Okay.
before January.
Oh, did they? I did not know that. See,
Before
this
the
is my-
January update, before the January update, some of the cards, I don't remember which ones, but some of the cards cost a point.
Yep. Yeah, you had Arcane Forces for +5 range. I think the Tough card cost a point for some reason, although that's now restricted to Khador. You had the Grievous Wounds card, which is a Brine Bloods player I'm personally delighted has gone away. There were a couple others. There were some options. Yeah.
Well, that's why this is a new player cast, because we didn't know about that prior to January. We weren't here.
Oh, sure.
Bring it back. We want it.
I
mean,
need my symmetry.
It does make list building easier. One thing I wanted to point out, Alex, earlier, you had talked a little bit about scenarios and how it's very similar. And I wanted to make the point for old heads thinking about coming back and like not wanting to go through the grind of getting back on the horse and not getting your face stomped on over and over again, because that is early Warmachine learning is a lot of losing. I mean, that is just sorry, buddy. It's complex. So in order, that's just how it's going to be. But sort of the amazing thing that they've done is they've sort of rounded off the edges on that. And I will tell you, if you're an old school Mark II player, I imagine if you're an old school Mark III player, this is true too. A lot of your skills for playing for scenario translate. very easily. I find myself playing for scenario like a boss because that's all I did in all those games was played for scenario. So I do really good playing for scenario, playing for attrition, those kinds of things, target selection. I do end up getting killed a lot because the game is deadly and, casters fall over dead pretty quick and easy. But yeah, so that's one part of it. And then the second leg of this point, I guess, is if you look through when I don't know if you guys had this experience. I'd be curious if you had this experience, but when I first downloaded the app, which is a whole nother discussion I want to get into, but when I first downloaded the app, I started looking at casters, and the first thing you look at is feats, and I'm just like, well, this is like a C tier feat. Like most of the feats, you're just like feel very underwhelming if you came from a Mark II environment and you compare them to like, I don't know, Haley 2's feat. You're just like, well, I don't know.
All the blow you out feats, it's worth noting, not all of them, but like the thing that gave color to blow you out feats were that they were in Mark II, but they came from Mark I.
Correct. That is absolutely correct. But so it was a long way for me to say, as a old head coming back into the game, it looks at first blush, it looks like Mark IV armies kind of stink, but you put them on the table, and I would say most of the legacy armies are at a disadvantage, even with the blow you out feats and the broken garbage or whatever. There's a lot of little factors that go into it, like all of your support models doing work. Not all of them, but almost all of them do work. Mm-hmm. So they're useful outside of just like their one role, like, being a harm bot or whatever. So anyway, it was a long way for me to say your learning curve is going to be shortcutted if you're an old head, and you don't have to like go through those early days that you remember. And like, I don't ever want to be that guy again that lost 36 times in a row. Right. Like it's not fun. Yeah.
Another item that I think is important to recognize that exists in the game now that we didn't have before is, we all played list chicken before, right? And picking the wrong list because you didn't know the meta well enough or the models well enough, you can get yourself stuck in pretty bad spots. A thing to get used to, and a thing that is a little bit jarring, spell racks. Spell racks give you tremendous versatility in your gameplay after you pick lists. And about every faction, like an easy example, about every faction has some sort of anti-range tech. And so if you play against somebody and they drop a gun line into you, right? John, what do we have in Dusk? We have deceleration. Decel. Okay, so you're like, oh, well, I just take decel, right? It's not like you have one caster with decel. All of our casters have decel. It's on the spell rack. And so the spell rack, it is, I was going to say it's a little bit of a crutch. It's not a crutch. It brings up your low end, right? Like you can't screw up as badly because you always have access to that after the list reveal. And that is something, it's a little bit something to get used to, but it's also it's an incredible amount of tactical depth and game balance that I think that they've added in there.
Well, the other thing it gives you a big element of consistency. But I mean, Ryan, I'm really grateful that you brought this up. I actually want to pivot the discussion onto this.
Before you do that, though, I just want to make one point about spell racks really, 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 really quick. And that is they also allow you great variety in list building, which is really fun because you can use the spell rack in different ways to go in different directions for your list builds. So I just want to point that out. It's one of the ways that you get more different types of builds out of less models. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So Ryan and Jordan, I mean, I'm guessing I know the direction you guys are going in this, especially like starting with new factions in Mark IV. And I think spell racks are a perfect segue. Do you feel like the old Prime armies are generally at an advantage at a disadvantage versus the newer armies, either because of the reliability and flexibility of racks? And, are there exceptions or edge cases to this? Where do you see the metagame balance and, why start with Dusk versus dust off old Cricks by way of example?
I think if I think about the game and if I think about Steamforged, I probably, if I'm them, I probably want the new Prime armies to be better, because if I'm going to bring in a new player and they want to buy into a new faction, I get to sell models. If they go out on the secondary market and they buy an old faction, they don't get to sell models. And so I do think there is incentive from a game balance to, or I'm sorry, from a game health, I will call it a company health, to have the newer armies be a tiny bit better. That doesn't mean that they need to blow the old stuff out of the water. It is important, I think, at this stage of the game that people have access to old armies, that if they want to dip their toe in and they already have models, they can do it without spending $1. And then you try it, you like it, you love it, and then you're like, man, old Umbry looks incredible. Let me go buy those. And then you're buying models anyway. I do think that the older factions, this is not a super educated opinion. I think some of the old stuff, yes, probably is at a disadvantage. I do think one tremendous advantage that some of the old stuff has is these days they're dark horses.
Yeah, nobody knows what they do.
Yeah,
nobody knows what they do.
Grimkin is showing up now on the meters a little bit more and like doing well in tournaments. I don't know what anything does in Grimkin. I know that their Colossal's a house and it has a front door. Like that's actually, I think, the name of its attack, because I looked it up one time. I have no idea what Grimkin does. I've had to learn Infernals, because Infernals is like at the top of the win charts at a 60% win rate. And that's one that's actually more often played. And so now I have to go learn Infernals. But are Infernals broken at 60%? I don't know, because some of those wins come from people not knowing, and it's a dark horse thing. So I guess, yes, TLDR, I do think some of the older stuff is probably at a disadvantage. I am very okay with that for the health of the game and pushing people into the newer stuff. And I do think you can get extra points for being a dark horse.
So I saw this question, and my first thought was, well, they're disadvantaged because they don't have the rack. That being said, I don't have a lot of experience into the old, like the legacy factions. I haven't seen a lot of them. And I don't have a ton of games, so that probably contributes to why I haven't seen too many of them. But
Fair.
The more I think about it too, I recently, maybe 2 weeks ago or so, I played a game, a pickup game against I forget what they're called, the Immortals in Scorn, all the stone people.
And the Exalted Army. Yeah.
I was excited to play into them because back in Mark III, that was my main faction. I played them a ton. So, I go into the game and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember what this thing does and this thing does. And I'm asking my opponent, like, well, what's the threat range? These can do this, right? These can do this. And every time I ask him a question, he's like, oh no, they can't do that anymore. They consolidated that rule. So I think a lot of the problem with the legacy armies too is just, and some of them were over the top in Mark III, but now you're looking at them and they do a lot less than they did. And now with the new armies coming out, a lot of them kind of feel like maybe they're approaching that Mark III power level, and the older armies have been at that level and kind of cut down from it. But I think the simplest one to point out is definitely the rack. I mean, like I said, I'm not a smart man, so there's like 8 or 10 spells on the rack, and I always end up paying from the same 3 every game. And I think that's just inexperience. But you have that option, like Ryan said, everyone's got an anti-shooting tech in there. So if you after you see the lists, oh, this is like an old school Haley list or a lot of shooting or Kara Sloan list, like taking that, I have access to that spell.
It's really interesting. I think both of you hit on, sort of the key decisive point. Success at a tournament often feels like a function of luck, of what matchups you got, what appeared in front of you. One of the things with the newer factions is because of the versatility of the spell rack at the table, and then even prior to that, the customization you get inside your battle group. I found, and this was one of the early differentiating factors when far much less of the catalog was released for the faction. Oh, excuse me, for the factions, is the flexibility enabled far more consistency. While any given tournament feels like luck, generally your trajectory over several tournaments is a viability indicator. It equilibrates in the long run. And what I found is new factions equilibrate much faster because they're far less likely to get just dropped into a blowout matchup. They have means to compensate for it. I think another thing, and Jordan, what you were talking about, the sort of, there is a narrow range of legacy factions that really hang with the big dogs, and I mean, Ryan, you were sort of like obliquely hitting this with Grimkin and Infernals. The legacy factions have come out incredibly well, essentially because they didn't suffer from a diminution of options available to them. Versus the old expansive factions like Khador, Signar, et cetera, had a bit of a drop off because they are losing tools and going down to about the same size as the new armies. One of the great things about the new armies, for the most part, depending on the faction you play, far less duds in your lineup, which is nice.
Absolutely. Yeah, the game is in a great place. The other thing I would point out about the new armies, and I think we kind of touched on this, but the models look so much better when they're painted up on the table. You're just like, oh, they've really leveled up on like the quality of their sculpts and just the design of the models, the cohesion of the armies. The armies look so good on the table together. Like, not every aesthetic is for every person. I get that, but like, I played in a tournament this past weekend, and I saw some of the old Protectorate models I used to play, and it just paled in comparison to the models that were across from them. It almost looked like two different games, which is interesting. But
the other benefit too is if you're in a game store or somewhere fancy and you drop your model, you're not worried about denting the floor.
You are worried about your model shattering into 1,000 pieces, though.
Oh yeah, that thing will shatter into a billion pieces.
I guess just to point out a bad side of the models is, at least for my models, I cannot keep swords on my models. It's like impossible. It's like after every tournament, I'm like, oh cool, I have 2 bows and 3 swords to glue back on, and that's pretty much every game.
Well, if you're buying secondhand, Dusk was a lot of Gen 2, Gen 3 plastic, or not plastic, but Gen 2, resin. Gen 3 resin. Gen 1 was unbelievably brittle and had a lot of serious problems. Gen 2 was starting to get better. Gen 3, I think, is where they started to dial it in. And then, my experience with everything since then has been golden. I've had a little bit of brittleness on Gravedigger models, but man, you get so spoiled once you're 2023 type production runs. Unless you drop them from a great height, the models are durable. The material has a surprising amount of give in it, like an amount of elasticity that prevents damage from everyday use. And then once you just take a model out of the bag and glue it on a base, and then you paint it and the paints all go exactly like you want them to, versus metal you had to wash for release grease and stuff like that. And man, the 3D printed stuff is so nice. I don't want to go back to the old days. I actually even have problems with the hips plastics because I'm just building things.
Hey John, do you remember Will It Blend?
Yes, I do, actually. You want to tell that story?
Okay, gosh, I'm trying to remember what started this. You guys were at a tournament. I want to say it was a Warmachine weekend, and 2 people had played a game, and I think you guys had said whoever loses the match has to put their Warcaster in a blender.
Yep.
And so somebody went to the store, went to Target and bought a blender, And then the segment was, will it blend? And I think it was one of your guys versus one of the guys from Houston, right? It was Michael
Yep.
Winters?
Yep.
And whoever lost, right, they put their metal model in a blender. The result I recall was the paint on the model instantly shattered off the model and sprayed around the blender. And so, yeah, no, it would be a little bit different if you put a resin model in a blender these days.
It'd be bad times indeed. But yeah, those were the good old days. I mean, we Ryan, sometime we're going to have to do a show where we just talk about all the old school stories.
Oh man.
Will it blend is a good one.
I forgot about Will It Blend, actually. The crazy thing is, I've been talk. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I actually disagree with you on the 3D prints. I much prefer the plastics. I hated the metal back in the day, but I mean they look absolutely gorgeous. But I need the play. I play a lot of GW games. I need that plastic. I need that.
Oh sure.
That durability. That
Hips plastic, the injected molded plastic, is the best medium currently for miniatures. It just is.
I don't know about that. I mean, I find the maybe this is like superstition. I mean, it's a builder's material, absolutely. And like Jordan, I'm with you. Like when I was a 40K guy, I loved kit bashing. I loved putting models together, and I love the flexibility it afforded. Versus the resin is like, what are you gonna do with this? It's a builder's material, and maybe this is superstition. Just as somebody who's like glue model to base paint, the way the painting experience goes is pretty important to me. I don't necessarily like painting. I just like it to go smooth. And because you're painting with plastic-based paints on top of plastic models, again, this might be superstition, I just find that acrylic paints land far better on a model that is not also made out of plastic.
I get that. Yeah, no, I just mean like for what you can do with models, like the 3D printing is pretty close, but you can get pretty wild with Hips plastic models. They're more durable. They are
more durable, but the undercuts, the undercut like finished sculpt here on the 3D printing, I've actually found is higher than the Hips starter kits.
Well, yeah, that may be for Warmachine, but all you have to do is go to your local game store and start picking up GW models, and you'd be like, or AOS models, even worse. You're just like, oh my god, look at this AOS model. It's literally like some 12-year-old kid had a joygasm on vampires. You're just like, I don't even know how this works. There's like scarves everywhere.
Yeah, you also get that you cut them off the sprue and the pieces fly everywhere, and you get all that yummy microplastic. That you can't beat that experience.
Oh no, I want the cancer cloud of sanding down resin.
Well, I mean, at least you're not running a laser in your basement.
Oh my god, yeah. I'm
acrylic.
sure the fumes you have had to inhale over your career in this game must have been like, an achievement list of exotic chemicals.
Absolutely. But yeah, TLDR, the game is great. But anyway, let's move on, Alex. I guess you're back.
Yeah. Let's change tacks because we've gone into like some odd hobbyist dimensions. I have a couple of questions that I want to roll together here. So we've answered the Prime and Legacy, and you guys have talked about what you chose.
Before you do that, Alex, one of the things that we made Jordan prep. Should we let him ask a question?
Oh yeah. Let's go for it, Jordan. You get us back into this thing. You got the worksheet.
Let me get my notes here. Well, we talked about the differences in scoring. One of my main question was, how do you know when to jam and how do you do it effectively? We kind of covered that. We talked about 1-point solos. We actually my second to last question was about the 3D prints and are we getting more hips? We talked about that, so we're actually really on track. My last question is, how do I beat Brad Park? If someone can tell me that, that'd be really
how do you beat Brad Park is like that's like the N body problem. Like scientists are pretty sure it's mathematically not possible to come to an answer to that. I don't know. Brad is just a monstrosity.
I mean, having never lost to
done it
Brad,
once
all I
in
can
my
say
career.
is you just show up and you beat Brad Park.
I was immediately like, all right, well, maybe I can get second with strength of schedule because I'll lose to Brad. And
wait, there's something in it's Sun Tzu or Musashi about this, about like
okay,
you've done the meditations in your temple and you've decided you lose and you're playing in the future where you lose. I mean, I've been guilty of this playing into like, Brad in the past, but like, if you rock up to the table with him having won the game is a fait accompli. Now it may be, sort of insane, like Greek tragedy level hubris, but you have to walk into with the mentality that Brad is mortal and can be defeated.
Can we
my
talk
God,
about
my
that?
balls are not that big.
Let's just talk about that for just a second. I don't know if you guys and Ryan would be a good person to talk about this, but if I know I'm in for a game, like back in the day, if I stepped up to the table and it was Brian White or Keith or Pagani.
Well, yeah, you guys had your own titans of like the legendary tier consistent players to like, man, like I can beat this guy on a good day, but this guy like doesn't have bad days tier player,
Right. But in those games, I played better because I don't know how to say this without sounding obnoxious, so I'm just going to say it. In a lot of games of Warmachine, I'm not fully engaged. I'm just like kind of muscle memory, kind of like playing the game, having a good time because winning and losing, I'm not that caught up in winning and losing, but you don't get 100% of my focus unless it's somebody that I really want to beat, that I really have a ton of respect for. And then they get the like everything I'm capable of, which is not much, but I do tend to give people a good game in those cases. But I guess what I would say is to beat Brad Park, all you need is reps and belief. You can do it.
Yeah, Ryan, take us through some of your memories. I mean, like everyone was a newbie on the circuit, at some point. What was the first time you felt like intimidation, coming into a player, or was there a time for you?
Coming into the game, I would say it was largely okay. So I was in Phoenix at the time when I started playing Warmachine. John, I knew of your guys. I knew your guys were very good, but you were more East Coast, Midwest for events, and I was more South and West for events, and so we didn't really commingle. For me, it was the Houston guys. It was Pagani and Billy, and there's a whole host of guys down there.
Per year was in that
group.
Per
year. Playing them, I think kind of the first times I played them, I remember we had the first WTC team, the very first WTC team. They did like a boot camp in Houston, and I went for the boot camp. I wasn't on the team, but I went for the boot camp, and that was scary because it was all the best players. And I had very good success in events already. I don't remember if I had one lock and load by that time. I think so, maybe not. And so like I knew I could hang with those guys, so I wasn't scared of them. But I knew that every game would have been a grind, right? There were no easy wins. John, to your point, I mean, you might walk up to a game and your opponent goes first and they move their models and you're like, oh, okay, like that doesn't seem efficient. That's not right. And I already have counters and I can do this. And you can autopilot a little bit more, right? Because you just know you know how to, your fundamentals are stronger. It is what it is. Those guys, there's no way. You're racking your brain the whole time. And so, yeah, that I would say that was kind of the first time I got a little starstruck. For the rest of it, I had always had such good success. There were a couple of years where I won LVO. LVO was a pretty good sized event that happened in February. And so, step one was, qualify for Warmachine weekend. And I won LVO back to back. So I qualified in February for Warmachine weekend. And then that just took all the stress out of the rest of the season because I was just waiting around for Warmachine weekend. So I'd go to events and I didn't care if I won or not. So that also changed the paradigm a little bit. I won the first big event I went to, though. It's probably 50 something players. I think I started the game in April, and I played an event in September in Southern California that I won. That was decent sized, and it was an alternate qualifier for Warmachine weekend that year. Funny enough, so I did qualify for Warmachine weekend my very first year playing. John, who was your Muse player that played Trolls?
Oh, Chad. That was Chad.
Chad. Chad had a qualifying spot, I think, for Warmachine weekend, and he wasn't able to make it. This is like 2011. And I was an alternate. And I ended up getting the alternate spot, but I didn't buy a ticket to go because I didn't think there was any chance I would get to go. So I got passed over for the next person. But I ended up, luckily enough, kind of coming out of the gates hot. And so
I never got to dominate in events because I played with too many good players in our local meta. And here's the other thing I will tell you. The best thing you can do is level up off your friends and then push each other to get better and better. And so the short answer is the key to beating Brad Park is just playing a lot of games, but then having a good solid think and probably a talk about those games to glean the lessons that you can from it and then implement those things. And before you know it, you'll be like, Brad, who? And, that's how it'll go.
Well,
we've played a lot of games together. I don't know. That's a big backlog. Big Brad in the club.
Brad's good, but I've never lost to him, so he can't be that good. I beat him in like, I don't know. He looked it up. I've only played him once, and I beat him in like 11 years ago or something. So it's probably maybe not quite the same, but I'll just retire. Happy to say that I've never lost to Brad Park.
Yeah, you beaten the like the nightmare player,
right?
Yeah. Jordan, for you, what was the sort of what was the shock moment for you coming into competition, whether it be being starstruck or like feeling like you're really up against it?
Well, it helps that I don't really know who anybody is. Like
Sure.
outside my meta, I don't know. I don't keep up with it that much. So, when we started playing, we would do. Mark would run scrums, which was like a steamroller, but extended out over the months. So every week you get an opponent. You have a week to schedule and kind of go from there. And in our heyday, we were hitting 30 some players. So you're kind of, and some of them are big name people like Brad, back when he lived up here, Mike Ireland and Kat, people like that. Like, so
yeah,
when you play them all the time, you kind of get used to it. It's not, and then, like I said, I outside my meta, I don't know who people are. So you go up against some of these people and you're just like, hey, well, like I got paired up against so-and-so, it's so-and-so. That doesn't mean anything to me,
Right. It's almost like there's a different proofing stage. Like, when you're in for a fight, like John said, or Ryan mentioned this, like, yeah, my opponent moves and like they do some suboptimal actions and like, okay, I know I'm probably going to crush this. When you pitch up against somebody and they deploy perfectly and then they execute first turn perfectly, like without asking you any questions, just like, I need to go here, do this. They're like, ooh, I'm in for a fight.
That also doesn't matter to me because I don't know what perfect movement looks like. So they move around. I just assume
Fair enough.
they did it right. They know what they're doing. I'm here to roll dice and see what happens.
Well,
especially
Sorry, go
when
ahead.
when I play Kill Team or something.
Mhm.
I go to a lot of big competitions for that, and I play the Rekkas. So all you got to do is roll sixes. And if there's one thing I know how to do, it's roll sixes. So the strategy is secondary at that point. Warmachine
That's how
obviously
you.
takes a little more finesse, but I'm just
That's how you
I'm not
beat
there
Brad
yet.
Park. If you roll all sixes, you have a shot. I promise.
I've done that.
But
It doesn't work.
he is quite good. He is quite good for sure. All right, so I guess we should get back on what were we talking about? We were talking about
Yeah, we deviated pretty heavily. I mean, I guess we've got about 16 minutes left in our pre-appointed time. I just want to roll these last two together because I feel like they're really important cultural differences. So, we've sort of talked around tactical depth in the game of Warmachine, particularly around things like unit movement, racking, warjacks, and the size of the game. But this sort of brings us on to, and it's hard to go from a list of questions, when we've got a panel of players who's so intuitive about the game and like really committed to reflecting on play experience. So we kind of pull question from question. What has changed in the tournament scene since you started playing? This can be either in like overall gameplay experience, the rules, diversity of casters, sort of Mark II Golden Age, I would say was actually like a really interesting meta game period, but like very narrow because it was like stable of 8 to 12 casters, with 20 something second stringers. We've collapsed the catalog. So like, whether it be like the meta game, the players themselves, or change in overall dynamics, how is the tournament environment different from what you remember at sort of like peak Warmachine versus coming back now?
The first thing I would say is I mentioned Bliss Chicken before being sort of offset by the spell rack. And so I feel like there are less of like one list is an armor skew and the other list is a defense skew. And if I pick the wrong list, I'm hosed because you can offset that a little bit by by the spell rack. And so I feel a little less gotcha'd. That's
also the range of defensive values has come down significantly since even late Mark III, where it was lower.
Yeah.
Somebody hitting armor 26 at all is incredibly rare, and mostly like when you're looking at armor, it's like they're going to be 22 across the board.
Yeah, and you do end up with a lot of higher values. I mean, everybody has access to shields now, so seeing like an armor 21 heavy, you just everybody expects armor 21 heavies. Everybody has a plan for armor 21 heavies, and you might have a list that brings 3 or 4 of them. You're looking at Gravediggers, right? Gravedigger can take 3 jacks with shields, not too difficult for them. The other part of the game that I would mention that did surprise me is Mark II. We didn't have open measuring. Mark III did away with open measuring, and we entered this time where proxy bases existed, but they were not standardized. And we went through a period of time where they were incredibly common. And you could proxy base out an entire killing spree to see if you could make it to their caster at the end, right? And you could place 10 proxy bases to do something like that. Fast forward 8 years coming back into the game, I have measuring sticks, right? I have a bunch of them that are 3 to 14 inches. It's very common to, you walk into your game and you just lay out your measuring sticks across the battlefield. This unit has an 11-inch threat range, so I'm going to toe up right outside of 11 inches, right? A lot of that stuff. And then this is a piece that really got me, right? I was a WTC player. I went twice. I won once. Like, I know how to play a clean game, right? anybody that knows the phrase Pagani, or if you hear the phrase Pagani, what it really means is you would kind of move a unit and then you would judge a couple of guys around, right? You would move your 10 guys and then you'd look at one of them and say, well, he needs to be back a tiny bit. And that was a Pagani. You'd pick up and move your model a little bit. I mean, you're out of activation really at this point anyway. And technically it is against the rules, but it was something that we all did. Things are a little bit not strict. Strict's not the right word. They're just more measured, I would say, these days. And when you're moving units, especially like medium base units or large base units, I think it's important to consider proxy bases these days. If you're going to move a unit of cav, put out proxy bases, pre-measure everything, confirm it with your opponent, and then you put your models on top of your proxy bases. If you're going to move a heavy, put out your proxy base, pre-measure everything, and then move your heavy. Go 3D print a proxy base for your colossal so that you can do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's a way that the game is played a little bit differently because, Alex, somebody like you has gone to the WTC 5 times now. And you've played high-level Warmachine as long as I played Warmachine when I was playing. Maybe a little bit. I played, I guess, 6 years or something. But the point is, that's ingrained in how you play now. You've been to those events, and it's become part of the culture. It's part of the lexicon of how people play Warmachine these days. And if you're if you're used to a Pagani and you're not used to proxy bases, you will be surprised a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting reflection because, I'd say probably, oh gosh, this is going to sound like far more moralistic than it actually is. But, Ryan, around the period you and John sort of stepped away from the game, there's what I would refer to as a sort of neo-Puritanism, which swept through the game. Which is, okay, we've had years of pre-measuring and we've seen the real extremity of like, oh yeah, I'm going to like proxy base out 100% my cloud wall and the killing spree off this guy and these caster movements. And like my turn takes 22 minutes. There was some, at the time I rebelled against them, but some reasonable impositions, but like they were essentially like, you have 2 table markers, but it was basically like, be reasonable with it. And there was an attenuation of the community toward, okay, we are going to pre-measure, and you and I both know in our game, yeah, I can move all these gun mages or these rangers or these druids, but there's only a handful of movements that really, really matter, and these really matter ones are going down with blank bases, before anybody hits go. And the blank bases before anybody hits go has informed a lot of things, especially with like standard unit movement now, because, often because to find the avenue of play anyways, you kind of have to do that. It's a bit of a cultural artifact from a period you guys missed by, just a few months to it's propagated down to a norm now.
I want to say something about tournaments. I don't know how you guys feel about this. I'll be interested to get your feedback because I think it's true. But a couple things about tournaments. Number one, they're a lot smaller, right? Which is nice because there's less rounds, or they're team events. So there's more team events than there ever has been. I mean, they're just random 3-man.
It's hard to break the Mark II heyday when, you'd go to LVO and it'd be something between like 90 and 130 players and like genuinely riveling the 40K
or more. I think there was years at Lock and Load where we had 400 players. I'm not even kidding.
Oh yeah.
Now they wouldn't all play in the main event, because there was casual players and painters and blah, blah, blah. But, we'd have 400 to 600 people in one place all celebrating Warmachine. It was great. So anyway, first thing, tournaments are smaller. I would say there's so many more new people that average skill level is down compared to when I played. I'm not saying anybody's bad. It's just there's more new people and there's less people attenuated to the game or who have played it for a long time than there were back in my day. And so what does that mean?
Go ahead. I'd put a valence on that and say that there's a lot more new players. There's a lot more returning players finding their feet. And even for guys who find their feet, they find them quickly. There's a really wild skill gap between like top tables and the O and X brackets now.
Yeah, I don't doubt that, but my point was you shouldn't be intimidated about going to a tournament.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of these reasons, it's much more new player friendly than they ever have been in my experience that I can remember, because they are smaller and there are more new players. So there's more people in the same boat as you, where you're just like, oh, cool. Yeah. Like, I mean, I went to a tournament this past weekend. Zach, who's we played a game. I think it was his first game in a tournament. Right. So, and it was awesome. We had such a good time, and it was so chill and relaxed because, there just wasn't any tryhards at this tournament that I was at. Not that we've ever had a huge problem with that, but we have had some issues with that in the past. But so I was just saying that's been sort of a welcome change for me, because as I get back on the horse and get reps and try to become reasonable at the game again, it's just less intimidating, because like if I were to walk into Mark II and I had been away for a long time and I would go to a tournament, I probably would go 0-4 or 0-5, 0-6, because they were like, back in the day, it was like a three-day tournament and it was like 9 rounds. You kids these days have no idea. I have no idea what it was like.
That's my note on how events have changed. But I want to hear from Jordan on this, because Jordan, you were sort of playing it like, Ryan and John sort of had this exit around 2017, 2018, and you were sticking in through like early pandemic-ish period, which, at least in my memory, the game went through some very major state transforms, both in terms of attendance, in terms of, how much the field was composed of like strict diehard veterans, the exit of new players. What's your experience in the tournament, or at least ambitious competitive environment nowadays versus, where you remember it at where you dropped out?
So it's interesting, because when I was listening to Ryan talk about how the game now is a lot more like pre-measuring and proxying and measuring things out, I was like, I don't know if we're playing the same game. Maybe it's like a different area, because from my experience, before the pandemic, and a little bit into it, when I was going to big tournaments in Mark III, like you had 3 sticks out, you had 4 proxy bases, like that was, you would spend 20 minutes on your turn going out and being like, I'm going to be doing this, then this. You good? And then your opponent would check it, and then you actually go out and do it. You don't even move the model because you got the proxy bases down. And now coming to tournaments, there's a lot less of that. Like you put the stick down and you measure, and then maybe you put out a proxy base, and then especially with like unit placement, maybe there's a guy you're trying to get in a particular spot. Maybe you throw a second one down, but there's way less like measuring and proxy bases now, I feel like, than when I was really going into it. So that's kind of a big change for me. I was at a tournament one time, and I had my sticks out, I had the proxy bases down. I had spent literally like 15 minutes of my clock measuring something out to see if I can get a beast into something and on an objective. And I asked my opponent, you good? And he was like, yeah, that looks good to me. And then I actually went through and moved all my guys, and I rolled the dice, and I took his model off, and he was like, let's measure that out a little more next time. I don't know if you had it. And I was like,
okay.
So that's kind of my experience with it. And it just seems like, I'll just throw my models out willy-nilly now. Wherever, I'll throw them in the air. Wherever they land is where they land.
You just gave me some like serious back in Nam flashbacks to
Oh yeah.
I won't go into details, but I just saw my life flash before my eyes because I had a specific event where that really mattered and that really happened.
One of my favorite stories, I'm just going to share an old story, is I went to Gen Con one year and I played against a player who was playing Harvey, who, if we all remember, was a 10 focus caster. and I was playing Fiora too. And this guy, he says, "Well, I'm kind of a big deal in my meta," and then he proceeds to pull out 10. Remember the old challenge coins we used to have, 10 Menoff coins that he used for his caster, and I absolutely just like. He got focused, John. A lot of times you don't get focused, John. He got focused, John, and I beat him so silly that he faked like almost fainting. Like I can't think. He started doing this, and he's just like, I'm dehydrated. You know, I'm not really playing my best here. So, but I'm like, it's all good, bro. You're fine. So, but yeah, that actually happened.
It's all good, bro. You're fine. You're still fucking losing, and you're losing hard. My apologies, but like,
but that was a meme on the podcast for a long time. I'm kind of a big deal in my meta. Yeah,
I almost named my podcast that.
Yeah. Actually, I wish, you know, if I could make SFG do a couple things, right? One, to bring coins back. Coins were awesome. I loved coins.
Coins were dope.
They were really neat. Two would be to bring the press gang back, because I think the game would grow gangbusters if we had some press gangers out there. Now we have people that act like press gangers, but it's not quite the same. The way they incentivized press gang was actually pure genius by Privateer Press. And that's actually what built the house that became Privateer Press, was completely the press gang 100%. So
yeah, absolutely. Wait. I mean, so they're apparently like behind the scenes, there's a precursor program. People are being reached out to. What built the press, like what built Privateer Press was the press gang. And what took the press gang down was endemic fraud. Yep. The Magic the Gathering lawsuit was a convenient excuse around the judges, which they incidentally lost. But it was a big deal that let you back out of a program wherein it was very easy for players to sign up and very easy to essentially milk free product out of you. You know, players, John, like you and like Ryan, are just natural community builders. Like, it probably doesn't matter what you do in life, whether it's like this or competitive barbecue or like, you know, just whatever. You'll probably have this personality in you and you'll behave this way. But those, like I've said in the past, if you go to an event with your PG or your PG runs a tournament, they should never buy their own beer. They should never buy their own food. You are paying for their meals. You know, because those personality types are really, really rare. I try to pretend to be one, but honestly, like it's not there in the blood for me in the same way that it is for a lot of community builders. And I think having a system that implicitly rewards those type of people and says, you're our champs, like us Privateer Press staff are saying, you community guys are our bros in whatever way, is super crucial, just to give that kind of acknowledgement and like anything for the people who make the game we all play possible. Like the game makers make it, but the community makers make it almost as much as the game makers, if not more. You know what I mean?
True story, though. I would never have become a community member without the press gang. So when I started Privateer Press, I had 3 kids, young family, and money was tight. So it was a way for me to enjoy the hobby. So I was like, oh, if I just run events, then I can get some free models and then I can like flesh out my army. So that's what I did. But then I found out that
you get a payout of like $50 to $150 a month, and it turns out that's actually like it's just enough to make it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was just thinking, like, I can't believe this, but you know, earlier we made the point that you know, we had like 100-person tournaments. Do you know that at my game store I used to run 120-person tournaments?
Holy
crap.
Which is insane. Yeah, I ran 100. I ran several Mayhem Cups that were over 120 people.
How did they fit?
We would rent space. So the game store was in this big strip mall, and there were several empty bays. So we would go to the owners and be like, "Hey, can we open up these 2 bays for a weekend? How much would that cost?" And the owners would be like, "Free money. I'll take it. $300. Cool." And then
I keep recommending this, by the way, to communities that are looking for space, is like, look for vacancy signs, look for commercial real estate where nobody has anything going on, and just offer them, hey, how much to take up this space? You can look at con halls, you can look at veterans associations like elk lodges or whatever. Vacant commercial real estate is making no money, and you can get thousands of square feet for real cheap. Oh man, I think we lost John to the bathroom. But I mean, on the note of 120 player cons, I mean, this was for me my major differential versus we'll say peak Warmachine Mark II, early like pre-pandemic Mark III, is event environments have changed in that we're sort of like past the era of cons for the most part. Like there's Nova's an obvious exception. Boker Brawl is an obvious exception. Captain Con is an obvious exception. But in the main, if you're looking at Warmachine events, particularly in the Midwest or the West Coast, what you're looking at is dedicated Warmachine events and not necessarily conventions. Like you guys said, attendance has generally gone down. Although, if I'm honest, versus 22 to 23, 24, attendance numbers in 25 are way higher than they were in the past. And we're sort of starting for non-con events, starting to reapproach the Mark II levels. So, for me, that's my two big different factors is depending on where you are in the United States, con events are less common and you're looking at standalone tournaments. And two, attendance may have fluctuated based on when you fell out of the game.
Crazy true story. I got into Longshanks when I first started like 3 or 4 months ago. Barely any events around me. Now, like, I could probably go to a local event every couple weeks, pretty easy. Maybe even more often than that if I wanted to. If I wanted to travel a little bit. So, like, even in 4 months, the number of events being run has exponentially grown in my local area, and I'm on the East Coast, right? I'm like an hour and a half from DC. So,
I mean, you're kind of in like modern day Warmachine paradise.
Yeah, it's because of those Delaware guys, those tried and true guys and gals.
Yeah,
they are.
Yeah, you got access to Delaware, New Jersey, Northern Virginia, which like has had a big player circulation, but still plays. Like Maryland, and your striking distance to, sort of the mid-Atlantic, and striking distance to, sort of the top end of the South, which is also still pretty active.
All right, well, we're at time, but let's just finish it up really quick and go around the horn. Is there something that you want to ask, Alex, before we cut this baby short?
So we've made... I mean, just like Jordan's question list, we've kind of naturally elided through most of these. So sorry, Discord contributors, if we didn't necessarily, exactingly answer your question as proper, but I think over the course of the conversation, you kind of got it. For our guests in particular, I kind of want to get your thoughts, just as a capstone. What are your feelings now, and what are you looking forward to, or where do you see that it is for the game to grow, either competitively or as a community-oriented exercise?
It feels like, as kind of you guys were talking about with John, and then me even here with Dallas, like we are rebuilding metas to what we knew them that they used to be in Mark II. And so I think anybody being a community guide, it doesn't have to be that you're running big events. It's just an offering to play a game to a new player, right? And you can kind of do this one at a time, right? And the other thing is, John, you mentioned it, that their productivity has gone up 4x in printing models, in whatever time span you mentioned. Right now, my local store doesn't have any models in store. They'll get a couple of the 2-player boxes, But once they get back up to speed on production of models and caught up, you're going to start to see Warmachine back in your local stores. You're going to start to see game nights. And so showing up to your game nights, being a friendly face. To John's point, you lose a lot of Warmachine when you start, so maybe don't punish the newbies too bad. Be willing to play some 35-point games, be willing to play some 50-point games, and just be a friend. And you guys even mentioned too, like you've kind of made friend groups wherever you've gone using these games. If you have a new person to the city, we've all been a new person to a new city and had made friends through games. So be that local friend. And so I think that's kind of the next step in this game is with PGs coming back and all that stuff and stock hitting stores, go create a play group, be a bud, and you don't have to be running tournaments necessarily, but show up to Warmachine Wednesday or whatever your game night is.
Yeah, come hang out with me.
Yeah, Jordan, what do you got for us?
Well, I'm really excited about the future of this game. I think a lot of the numbers, like you were saying, for tournaments are trending in the right direction. I think we're getting a lot of new people that are coming in. I think a lot of it too is older people coming back.
That's the biggest demographic in this game right now is returning Mark II players.
I think that's a huge portion of it. But with that, you do still get some new people coming in, and I think
they're the number 2 biggest demographic. Like Mark III circuit veterans are probably they used to be the main breed in Lake Mark III because there wasn't anybody left but tryhards. Now we're a minority, and we're very happy to be a minority. But I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No, you're good. I think this time next year, if we were going to have some of these similar questions, I think, when we talk about tournament size, we're going to be looking at some tournaments that are way bigger than what we see now, even. Mm-hmm. And I think, I'm excited. I'm going to be going to Boca Brawl in 26 for the first time in I guess since, I think I played in 21 or maybe 22, whenever they started up again after the pandemic. But
yeah, it would have been late 21 or early 22, and it was 22 when most of that came back.
Yeah, and they used to be in October, and now they're in April or something. So either way, it's going to be 3 or 4 years that I've been out, and I'm going back, and I'm really excited for that. I think everything is trending up in terms of numbers, and we're it's really important now to kind of foster these people coming in, because those first 3 to 6 months you're playing a new game are super important to whether you're going to stay in and be invested in it, or whether you're going to throw down $200 for a couple models and then be like, you know what, I'm out. It's not for me. The community's not there, or it's too hard, or whatever I got going on. And I think it's really important now to foster these people so that next year we can hit those numbers.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good benchmark, right? Because we can look at Nova. The Nova IG has 40 players. Good sized tournament. Pretty small for a Nova Open based on my remembrance of, it was
attendance.
Yeah, historical attendance. It was unusual for there to be less than, 10 flights of 8 players, or even more probably. So that's interesting. But yeah, I guess as we wrap this up, I just want to take a moment to thank you guys. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Ryan, for coming on. Alex, you're my bro. I'm glad you're here. But I wanted to point out that Jordan literally just responded to a Facebook post that I posted at noon or 1 o'clock or something, because I was like, oh, I just found out Aaron Whaley can't be here, which we promised and we didn't deliver, and I apologize, but real life happens. But the way we've designed this show, anybody can be a guest. And it's Jordan, you can tell them it's super easy, right? You just click a link and you can join on your phone.
Well, I had some boomer problems with my wife's computer, but I did join on my phone, and it's pretty, I don't know what the audio on my end is like, but I can hear you guys perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's been fun.
John's got that noise canceling in place, so we're good to go.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I guess my only point is I want to like invite other people to come be on the show. If you feel passionate about a subject, or you want to ask a question, or you just want to, jam out some lists with us, let me know. We're always happy to do content, and it'll make it interesting, right? So yeah, I just would like to invite everybody, and then I guess we'll just go around one more time with Jordan and Ryan. If there's anything you want to tell people about, like your community or what you're working on, or other content endeavors that you're doing, or whatever you got going on, feel free to share so people can come find you if they want to learn more.
I'm on the Discords on occasion, but generally, not a ton. I've kind of waxed poetic about, being a friend in your community. And so I'll just kind of echo that again. Bring in more players, bring them up, train them up, play games with them, get them better at it. They'll make you better. And before you know it, you'll be beating those tournament players that have given you a hard time. I don't know.
Yeah, you'll beat the boogeyman Brad Park, as it were.
There you go. Yeah.
As an aside, that was actually probably my my first not my first starstruck moment, but I had like one that was a reverse. I think it was pitching up at LVO 2018, and I run into Tom Guan round 2, and he's like, "Oh god damn it, Alex Cosma, these games are always hard." And I'm like, "You really mean that?"
Yeah, get on here, Jordan. Man. Come on.
All right. Well, I'm on the Discord. I'm Fox Dice. So, if you're in the South Jersey, Philadelphia area, reach out. We're kind of lucky. We got a big meta ourselves, but we're also sandwiched in between the New Jersey SOBs up north and Tried and True down in Delaware. So we have a plethora of events that we can go to, and we do. So if you're looking for games, or if you're new and you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I can't tell you how to beat Brad Park, but I can tell you where to play games, and maybe give you a couple pointers on where to start. And we're all about fostering new people, and we run our own scrums. I mentioned, so back in our heyday, we were getting 30 people for that. We're probably at like 12-ish now, but we're still growing.
That's the world's most fortunate metagame, Eiffel Tower. If you're anywhere between New England and the Mid-Atlantic, look up the Philly metagame, because it turns out you are in competitive Warmachine paradise right now.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Okay, well, that has been another episode of the Musing Panda live stream. Thank you guys for showing up. We appreciate you very much. And just a friendly reminder to like and subscribe. The reason why we need you to subscribe is I have promised that if we get to 500 subscribers, which we're only halfway there, folks, then we will add a third hour to this show. And
we keep aggressively pushing it. Like, the show wants to be 3 hours. We keep having to cut these discussions a little short, because I know Ryan and Jordan both have another hour's worth of solid gold in them.
For sure.
Well, I don't know if I do. I barely scraped out this much gold.
All right. Peace and love, everyone, and we'll see y'all soon.
Take care.
Thanks, guys. Bye, chat.